There's the pass to Leitner. Puts it up. Yes!
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Camera Chronicles. I'm your host, Ranjan Jindal, joined by Caleb Dudley. Caleb, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. Big week.
Big week, big day. We're recording today, Friday, a day before the Duke North Carolina game, which is tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. in Cameron Indoor. Tents went up yesterday. Packed them up yesterday, I guess.
Yeah, Wednesday. Yep.
Yeah, Wednesday. Should be a fun atmosphere. But yeah, we'll preview that matchup today and then also talk about Duke's two most recent wins, which were both kind of close calls. We'll talk about that in a second, but Duke beat two North Carolina teams, beat Wake Forest 63-56 last Saturday on the road, and then came for a short turnaround and beat NC State at home 74-64. Although both of those games got pretty tight and Duke was losing for significant portions or decent portions of both, which has not been something that has happened in ACC play that much. So yeah, we'll go through all that, talk about that, preview the North Carolina game, tell you everything you need to know for that. Should be a fun one. Yeah, excited for it. But first, this podcast is brought to you by Duke Stores. Support your favorite Duke team. Duke Stores is home to the only collection of merchandise in the world that comes to you straight from Duke University. Go to shop.duke.edu for all of your Duke merch. Great weekend to get some Duke merch. Okay, we'll start with the Wake Forest game because you were there. So I know you have some insight there, but it was obviously going to be a tough environment to play in after what happened last year, and Wake Forest was on a 6-game winning streak going into that game. But Duke ended up winning 63-56 after kind of a strong last 5 minutes. But what are some of your takeaways from that win? And I know you wrote a good sidebar about that, so you might want to talk about that too.
Yeah, the first thing for me is you just mentioned Wake was on a win streak. They were also undefeated at home going into that game, and you could tell it was extremely loud in there. And like a bunch of media members and Coach Forbes said it was like the loudest they've heard the stadium in a long time. And you could feel that to start. Duke kind of quieted it in the first half. They held Wake to just 22 points, but the fans were still right in it. And then the second half, once they started getting on a little bit of a roll, it really flipped fast in favor of the Demon Deacons. But I think for Duke, it was, and Coach Shire said this too, it was more just they just didn't execute. Like it wasn't anything that they couldn't fix. They just weren't making shots, and that happens sometimes. And then when you hold, I mean, you're not going to hold Wake Forest to 44 points, 22 points a half. So Wake started making some shots. I just thought it was good for Duke to kind of have that game pressure in the ACC. Like you said, they haven't been tested very much, and for them to get that big win in front of a hostile crowd was big for them.
Yeah, agreed. I think in the second half, a couple things I noticed. We'll talk about the offense first from Duke, and then I know we have some defensive observations. But you're right in that Duke was missing shots from the outside, but I thought Wake Forest did a really good job, like stopping driving lanes. They were really physical. I mean, some of them maybe could have been called as fouls, but regardless, they were doing a great job closing gaps, making drives difficult, especially for the guards like Con Knipple and Sion James kind of sometimes struggled inside to get their normal layups, and Tyrese Proctor as well. Tyrese and Sion are normally like pretty efficient from the field, but they weren't against Wake, which is kind of a testament to how they were, one, how they were defending the lanes, and then two, they were just kind of missing shots from the outside. And also they kind of forced a lot of turnovers. Cooper and Con had 12 combined, I think. And so some of that is just like they really were like collapsing the paint when someone would drive and force Duke to beat them from the outside, which Duke was not able to do. So credit to Wake Forest on that. And then the flip side of it is Duke's defense, which was strong throughout. But like you mentioned, Wake Forest kind of had that run there in the second half where they started making shots. And John Shire went to his zone. After the game, he said that they hadn't played zone all year. Cooper hadn't played zone, but it worked really well. It was a kind of a change of pace. And I kind of like zone with this team because, they're super long. I thought it worked out well.
Yeah, it was hilarious. I was sitting there and someone asked, and they're like, Cooper said, "You ever played zone?" And Cooper's like, "Nope." And he was like, "Well," I was like, "No wonder you weren't very good at it." But I thought, I mean, obviously it's not like a Syracuse elite zone, but I think it did the job. I mean, Wake Forest is not a very good shooting team. I don't know how well it'll work against, a team that can really shoot, but for Wake, it was just something to kind of change the rhythm of the game. Wake had really got on a roll, and Duke could not just stop the bleeding. And so I thought it was a pretty smart move. It was risky, but it obviously paid off. Two more things I had about that game. One, I thought Wake did a really good job of getting Kaman in foul trouble down low, and Patrick Ngongba both. I know Ngongba fouled out right at the end of the game, but I thought Ngongba and Gillis off the bench filled in for Kaman at the 5 pretty well. Efton Reed is not a small human at all.
No, he is not.
They did a pretty good job neutralizing him. I think he only had like 9 points. Yeah. I think Ngong was really come on strong. As a reserve big here. I know we'll talk about Malik Brown maybe in a minute, but for them to have two centers they can count on in big games like that is huge. And then the other thing was, and Forbes mentioned this too, was just the rebounding margin was absurd.
Yeah.
I mean, Wake has a pretty big front court in Trevon Spillers and Efton Reed, but Duke killed him on the glass. I mean, and it was really the guards. I mean, Tyrese Proctor had 8, Khan had 8. Like it was
Kind of
just
9. Wow.
oh
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, they killed him on the glass. Especially in the first half. It was I think they started out 10-0 on the rebounds. Like
Wow.
Wake just so big for Duke just to kind of, especially when Wake was getting hot, to keep them just to one possession was big.
Man, I'll tell you what. If Wake could like make some threes, just
It'd be
like
so
generally, I don't know. I mean, at some point it's like mental. I know it probably is mental for like guys like Parker Fredrickson, who's like a good shooter, but it's just completely off.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit for Hildreth too. But man, they were 3 for 18 against Duke, and that's kind of been where they've been for most of the season. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was their first. They made the first 3. They didn't make one the whole first half. They made 3 in that little run they had when Duke couldn't score, and then that was it. After they went to zone, there was no more threes the rest of the game.
Yeah. So I think the takeaway from that for Duke was to turn the ball over less, execute a little bit better on offense, and kind of don't rely on ISOs too much. Keep moving the ball and be patient because shots will come and things like that happen. So then Duke took a day off, only one day off, and then went to NC State. Obviously, the Wake game was so physical, so a lot of guys, I don't know, were kind of tired, sick, something happened. But that game was also close, kind of a flip story in the sense that NC State got off to a strong start and led at halftime. But Duke really turned it on late, like the last couple minutes of the first half, and then early into the second half to really separate. But credit NC State because they never were out of it, especially even at the end. But yeah, what were some of your takeaways from that game? Duke ended up winning by 10, 74-64.
Yeah, I was really impressed with State's defense.
Mm-hmm.
They really did a good job. They didn't make Duke turn over too much, but they just really affected a lot of shots and made it tough for Duke. I thought Dontrez Styles did a pretty good job on Cooper Flag in the
Very
first
good
half. He's from about 20 minutes from me, so
Oh, that's awesome.
watched a lot of Dontrez Styles in my day, and I know that guys that are from North Carolina and don't get recruited by Duke usually like to come in and have a big game in Cameron, and he did just that. And then obviously the big thing that kept them in the game was their 3-point shooting. They're kind of like Wake. They're not a good shooting team, but they really shot well against Duke, especially in the first half. Trey Parker came in the game averaging 3 points, was 3 for 4 from 3, had 15 points. Styles was 4 for 6, Jaden Taylor 2 for 4. So I just thought that kept them in the game, and it was a really good performance honestly from NC State.
Yeah, I agree. The defense from Styles on Flag was impressive. He got into foul trouble late. I think he fouled out.
He did. Yeah.
But yeah, he did an incredible job. I thought offensively there was that little spark. I kind of mentioned it where Duke really turned defense into offense, turned him over a couple times, and ran out and got some buckets there, and that really turned around the pace of the game. It just was also another really, really poor shooting night for Duke from deep. Duke was 4 for 20, which is just not where you want to be. And it's unfortunate, but when those scoring droughts start, you really can collapse the paint if you're a defense and kind of focus on stopping Cooper Flag from getting his, which obviously he still did because he's Cooper Flag. He got to the line 13 times, which was impressive. But I think the guards, if they're not shooting well, really need to focus on kind of trying to drive to the basket, trying to get fouls, working on their kind of mid-range shots as well, which are not what teams shoot a lot of. But there were a lot of open shots this game. I thought they also just missed them for Duke. Another strong rebounding effort from the Blue Devils, and I thought one thing that I wanted to note was Ngongba's play at the end. There was one play that like stuck out to me. I think it was like a pick and roll with Flag, and he like passed it to Ngongba, and he like caught it in midair and finished, and it was a tough finish in the sense that like you got to have a big man who can catch it and finish, and it was it showed kind of his gifts and his touch around the basket. So that was impressive, and he's always a great defender. But that was a weird game.
Yeah, Ngongba I really thought did well. I think that in the same thing in the Wake game, I saw a couple of possessions where that Flag and Ngongba pick and roll was
Yeah.
pretty smooth for a duo that hasn't played a lot of minutes together. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
I also thought Khan played really well in the first half. I know his shots weren't going as well in the second half, but he he really did a good job scoring from all three levels of the court and getting to the basket and getting his. It was kind of like the first half was Cons and kind of the second half was Cooper. But good job from both of them for like taking over when their teams needed it. Also just weird shenanigans that game.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, thankfully the student that seemed to faint is okay. Come on, Coach Archie's never seen something like that happen during a game. With Kaman throwing up on the sideline. It was just a crazy game. There was that stretch where like Tyrese had that steal and then tried to pass it to Sion and they fumbled the ball out of bounds on like a fast break, and it was a crazy game.
I'm chalking it up to a Saturday, Monday.
Yeah.
No,
rivalry game. You've had. I mean, you're going your 2 out of 3 in a row here.
Yeah. But look, it's a good lesson. Like Duke's gonna get the best shot of every ACC team. You mentioned that in your Wake sidebar. I mean, like these teams really have nothing to lose, and it's their one shot to play in Cameron. And on one hand, it could make teams really nervous, but on one hand, it could be like, feeling good in Cameron. Want to show out. Okay, so that cover it for the NC State game. You have anything else you wanted to say about that?
No.
Okay. Before we preview North Carolina, let's talk about the ACC. We'll do our stock up, stock down. Caleb, go first.
Yeah. I mean, I think stock up at this point, it's got to be Louisville.
Jeez.
They're on an absolute heater. They just destroyed Wake. They did play at home, but they beat Wake 72-59.
That doesn't do it justice. I mean, it was a 30-point game. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's really been unbelievable. They haven't lost since December 14th, since they lost to Kentucky. I mean, all of their losses here are Tennessee, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Duke, Kentucky. I mean, that's nothing to frown at there if you're Louisville. And I think Pat Kelsey's done a really, really good job. They've had a lot of injuries, probably more than most teams in the country, and they just made it work. With an all new team, guys have never played together before, and they're just making it work. And I think Duke fans might not like to hear this, but I think there's a pretty strong chance they win the ACC. I think
you mean the tournament or the
regular season.
Oh, okay.
They've lost one game. It's Duke, obviously. Their toughest game up is Pitt at home.
Okay.
They don't play a lot of other good teams. I mean, the next toughest game is Stanford at home, Florida State at home. So they have a really favorable schedule here. I think there's a pretty good chance Duke loses one of the North Carolina games and Clemson or someone else on the road. So I mean, I think there's a pretty good chance Louisville finishes 19-1 and wins ACC.
There you go.
And then stock down, I'll go with Wake. I mean, it's not really their fault. Well, I don't know. They had a tough schedule this week. But I mean, they can't. If they want to make a tournament, they can't lose to Duke, blow it against Duke, and then get blown out by Louisville.
Yeah.
They just can't do it. I think they have a really good team. Coach Forbes on Saturday said that they know they have a good team, and it just hasn't worked out for them sometimes. But they just can't play like that and make the tournament.
Yeah. All right. Well, you heard it here first. Louisville regular season AC champs. No, I actually I see where you're going with that, and I don't think that's a terrible take, especially with how well they're playing. Okay, my stock up is going to be Stanford. How about the Cardinal winning 4 straight? I've been really impressed with Stanford. I think obviously they have right now playing like all first team all ACC caliber, but they're pretty balanced across the board. Isaiah Sellers has been playing really well. Jalen Blake's obviously hit that at the buzzer beater against North Carolina, and he's just been shooting the ball so much better than I think he really ever did when he was at Duke. At least just how he looks more comfortable, and I think that change of scenery helps being kind of one of the lead guards on a team. But they have shooters. They play tough. Their defense isn't great, but if they're scoring the way they do, so they're on a 4-game win streak right now. I think they were up on Syracuse like 17-0 or something to start. Ended up only winning that by 9, but still, 4 straight wins and could really make some noise. And they're going to be fighting for that double bye in the ACC tournament. There's 3 teams kind of knotted at 7-3 in the league right now. Them, SMU, and Wake. So, we'll see. You never know. Newcomers in the ACC playing well. My stock down is going to be BC, not because I thought they played bad against North Carolina. I thought they played really well, but you got to come out with a win there. Like playing that well all the way to the end. You had a lead with a minute left and just kind of blew it there. And in overtime, North Carolina, was a better team, so they, won the overtime period. But if you have that moment, you gotta wrestle it away and finish. I mean, I've been impressed with them against Duke, but they've lost 6 straight, and Earl Grant's team is fighting, but kind of this bottom 4 or 5 teams of the ACC just it's not been pretty for them. But hopefully Boston College, because they've been playing competitive, playing hard these past few games, can string together some wins. I don't know. Any other things around the ACC that you're going to say?
I mean, yeah, I'm looking at the standings right now, and it's like there's about 7 teams that are in danger of missing the tournament. They're all kind of clustered up here. Like, 'cause
Yeah.
I know the bottom 3 miss it now with the new conference realignment.
Oh, right. The
And
ACC.
so it'll be
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, I think Miami's a lock to miss it.
Lock to miss.
They got
crazy.
murdered by Virginia, and that like you can't give up 100.
Gets murdered to Virginia.
Virginia, if Virginia
Virginia
light,
scored 82 on
if
Miami.
Virginia lights you up, like you're done. Like they've obviously phoned it in. They have a good team, so I don't understand how they haven't won a game. Whatever. But yeah, like I mean, you got Georgia Tech, Syracuse, Virginia, NC State, Boston College. Like are all kind of lumped in there. So I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think you mentioned that top 3. I think I'd mentioned a tier of like 4 teams earlier, and Wake Forest lost a couple, but I think there's like a three-team tier at the top right now: Clemson, Louisville, and Duke. And we'll see if one team can really join them, because there's that cluster, like I mentioned. Pitt has won a couple games in a row. I still think they're very, very good. So, they've kind of made it past the toughest part of their schedule. One game I'm going to be watching tomorrow, besides obviously Duke UNC, is Pitt at Wake. I think the winner of that can really get. Wake needs it because they're on a 2-game losing streak, but if Pitt wins that, they can really carry that momentum into a pretty favorable schedule throughout the rest of the way, besides a road game at Louisville. So, yeah, big week in the ACC. But the biggest one in the ACC, and the biggest one, I guess, in all of basketball, Duke UNC, 6:30 p.m. Like I mentioned in Cameron Indoor. Our rivalry edition is out. I'll talk about it more at the end, but it's on print across campus. If you're listening to it here, it's on the website. We have so much content. First, do you want to just talk a little bit about your article, and we can advertise it a little bit?
Yeah. So I wrote my feature about Kaman. I think he's really come on strong here since the start of the season. Obviously, I think, the way he's playing now and the way he played in November is completely different. So I just wrote about his development and how it fits into kind of a wider trend of Duke development in general.
Yeah.
I mentioned Mark Williams and Derek Lively, some other guys. Talked to Justin Robinson, who runs player development here and works with the big men a lot. Had a great time writing it, and I think his Kaman's obviously going to be big here on Saturday. So
Definitely, yeah. That was a great piece. We had pieces on Sion James' charity work, which is a really good feature by our Sophie Levinson. We have a couple columns, one about Duke's defense, another about how John Shire's a class above Hubert Davis. Take a trip down memory lane. There's a top 10 plays of the century for Duke against North Carolina. That's a really cool article. I wrote one about a barbershop called Rivals Barbershop in Durham. Shout out if you're living in Durham, go check them out on Mangum Street. And then we have a really big comprehensive feature about the history of the Cameron Crazies, which is one of my favorite articles that I think I've ever read for the Chronicle. Coach K's in there, alumni are in there, so it's great. This is all part of a rivalry challenge that we do, the Daily Tar Heel, to raise as much money as we can to support student journalism. So if you can and are willing to support, we would really appreciate it. The link is on our website at dukechronicle.com or on our Instagram. There's a big pop-up on the website. It's like donate and beat DTH. But we really appreciate any gifts that we have, or just spreading the word about the challenge in our paper itself. All right, so on to the game. I think one thing that I'll mention, news that we heard yesterday at a Shire press conference, is that there's a chance that Malik Brown plays. He's been out with a knee sprain for the past 2 or 3 weeks.
Since Notre Dame, right?
Since Notre Dame, yeah, it's like 3 weeks. So obviously, if he comes back, it would be a big help. But we won't speculate too much on that. Just wanted to put that note out there. Caleb, what are some of your keys? Obviously, Duke on paper is a better team than North Carolina, but it's a rivalry matchup. So what are some of your keys for Duke to win this one?
Yeah. The thing I'm interested to see is obviously everyone talks about it, but Duke is much bigger than North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty obvious. I know Jalen Washington's status is up in the air, kind of like Malik Brown. He got hurt against Boston College. So if he doesn't play, that's a whole different story. But assuming he does play, I'm interested to see if Duke decides to just try to just outside North Carolina and just play Kaman and Cooper together, or if they maybe play small ball at times with Gillis or Malik Brown if he comes back. Because I know UNC will definitely try to switch Kaman onto their guards and make some plays like that. So for me, it'll be interesting to see if Duke can just dominate inside like they have against other teams. They should be able to win the rebounding margin pretty well, and hopefully draw some fouls. So yeah, inside is definitely where to watch for me.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good point. I think Duke has the size and the length advantage, but one thing I'm watching is North Carolina has a quickness advantage. So how do you combat that, right, for Duke? And there's a couple ways. One is Duke has been susceptible to turnovers in the past couple of games, but being patient offensively and don't let North Carolina speed you up, because they're quick and they're going to reach down low. So you can't bring the ball down if you're Kaman or Cooper or maybe those spin moves might not work, or if you're a guard, you got to be strong when you're driving because they got quick hands and they're going to be reaching down. Ian Jackson, Cadeau are like that. They haven't played particularly well defensively as a unit. A lot of that is due to their, like you said, lack of size on the inside, but they can get steals, right? So I think that's an important part of stopping or not letting North Carolina, neutralize that in any way. So turnovers are going to be a stat I'm watching. And this is, just kind of obvious, but looking at the past 2 games, the 3-point shot has not been there for Duke.
Yeah.
And North Carolina can shoot the 3 pretty well, or at least they have shooters that can. Sometimes they don't as well. So as long as Duke is not I don't think Duke needs to shoot 40% to win this game at all. But if you're not at the 18% to 20% range that Duke was the past 2 games, then it'll give you more confidence to win. So those are a couple things I'm watching.
Yeah, I'll be interested. I mean, what do you think? You think Sion on RJ Davis?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because obviously they got Ian Jackson, Cadeau, and RJ Davis.
I think, Tyrese has done a great job guarding RJ the past couple of years, and so they might keep that matchup. But I think it's a matter of who they don't want to tire out as much because RJ's gonna be running around, right? RJ's running around a lot more than he did last year. So if Tyrese is handling more primary ball duties on offense, maybe Sion guards RJ. Yeah. I'm curious to see who guards Cadeau. If that's Con Knippel, Cadeau's fast, man, and he can drive inside. Con's probably going to play off, force him to shoot the ball a little bit. But, Cadeau's a good playmaker, and he can, make some good passes inside, get past the defense and throw lobs. He also has the tendency to turn the ball over a little bit. But that's a matchup I'm watching, the Cadeau Con Knippel, because I assume that's what they're going to.
Yeah, I mean, unless
they put
they've also been starting Trimble some recently, too,
instead of
just in there
or guard line. Yeah.
And so if they do that, they could put flag on Ian Jackson, let Sion and Proctor take Cadeau and RJ, and then let Con guard Seth Trimble.
Yeah, I assume they might, because Ian Jackson's a little bit taller. 2 or 3 inches taller than Cadeau, so they might not. They might not put Con on Cadeau just because the height disadvantage there. So or on defense, the height disadvantage.
I think what they'll do is they'll start Drake Powell. He's a great defender. He's a freshman. They'll put him on Cooper Flag.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be Davis, Cadeau, Jackson, Powell, and then Washington if he plays. If not, I guess Van Allen Lubin or maybe Withers.
Yeah.
And so I think they'll try to match up Powell and Flag the best they can. Which will be a good one to watch. I think he's one of the best defenders for a freshman, and then obviously Cooper Flag is maybe the best player in the country. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how Duke matches up, and then it'll be kind of a chess match the whole way with the way the teams are constructed very differently, as Andrew wrote about this week.
Yeah, as I'm talking, I kind of almost like Sion and Cadeau or something, just to try to make because Cadeau is primary ball handling responsibilities, and when he's not able to play make, this offense is not very good, right? Because Davis is obviously fantastic, but when you don't have Baycott inside, there's only so much one player can do. And I think they really give Cadeau the ball to take that load off of Davis. Mm-hmm. And so maybe put Sion on him and try to really challenge him, get in his head a little bit. And I think Con could do maybe a better job on Jackson, maybe in that sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. Should be a fun one. I also think Van Allen Lubin has not played particularly well the past 2 games. And so I think really taking advantage of that, trying to get him to turn the ball over, make some bad decisions. He's a talented player, but just has not played well. I looked up Washington. It seems like he's not ruled out.
Yeah. I think kind of the Malik.
Yeah.
They're both practicing this week.
Yeah, but North Carolina, kind of has played 5 out at times, which has hurt it at times, but also they can shoot the ball at all 5 positions. And if they have a good shooting night against Duke, which this is the perfect opportunity for that to happen, right?
Exactly.
It's a rivalry matchup. Duke's, 10 games better than North Carolina at a record wise, but I don't know. You want to throw out some score predictions? We got Beats Picks tomorrow, but
yeah. I think the spread is I think Kimball has a 15-point game. I don't think it'll be anywhere close to that. I think, like you just said, I think North Carolina will hit a few shots and kind of start feeling it, even though Duke obviously has the talent advantage. Let's see. Score. I think it'd be 5 or 6 points. So let's go 71-65.
Okay, I like it. I think Duke might pull away in the last few minutes. There's part of me that thinks Duke beats North Carolina by 20 and runs them out of the gym.
Yeah,
and I think that could happen. It's just I don't know if it will. I think there's about a 40 or 50% chance that happens. I'm not gonna lie, just because like I don't know who's gonna stop some of these players on Duke.
Yeah, the thing about that is like,
And like if Duke's shooting well,
Yeah.
like forget about it.
and the other thing there is like, and a lot of teams have run into trouble with this is like if Drake Powell and like those guys get in foul trouble on Cooper Flag, like
Yeah.
they don't have other guys to put in there really.
Right.
And I think, that's got to be Duke's game plan. It's
Yeah.
just feed Flag, so they don't have anyone to match up with them. So we'll see. If they start getting in foul trouble and like it gets turned into like they're playing Cade Tyson the rest like for down the second half, like it's gonna be, it might get out of hand, like you say.
Yeah, I mean, he was also supposed to be a fantastic transfer and just hasn't materialized yet. We'll see. The only reason I could see it being close is just a nerve standpoint, because you saw that a little bit against Boston College, saw it a little bit against Wake. Not having to, the game pressure of the past 2 games helped, but I mean, obviously this is the biggest thing they've ever had for a while with all the hype around tenting this year and the amount of people that are there. It could just be, a little bit nervous for them because all the pressure's on Duke, right? I mean, like North Carolina has a tournament spot to play for, but, much less in terms of rivalry bragging than Duke and is going to, put everything they give Duke its best shot. I think I'm going to go with like 77 to like 65, 66. I think, I think Duke wins by like 10 or 12. But again, I could see it being worse. But yeah, it should be a fun atmosphere there. Anything else you have as far as game preview stuff?
No,
We covered it pretty well.
If you're, if you're coming to the game tomorrow, have fun. I'm sure it'll be a good one.
Yeah, it's gonna be a moment.
If if you're a student listening, please be safe tomorrow. It's gonna be wild.
Yeah,
it's gonna,
definitely.
like record tinting numbers and everything. So it's gonna be quite the time.
Yeah, everyone take care of yourself. Game day's coming to campus tomorrow, so that should be fun. Or I guess they're here right now, but that's at like 10 a.m. And then all the festivities start throughout the day. So if this is your first time being on campus for Duke UNC game, it's an awesome opportunity. Pick up your rivalry editions. They're on shelves across campus, the Bryan Center, Woo, or the West Union, a bunch of other places. You'll probably see some of us handing them out at some point. But yeah, anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. Have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the game. Enjoy your weekend of basketball. We'll be back next week to recap that and preview another big weekend contest that Duke has. So stay tuned for that. For Caleb Dudley, I'm Ranjan Jindal. This has been the Cameron Chronicles.